Roger Clemens. They called him the Rocket, and every time he stepped on the mound, hitters knew pain was coming. A fastball like a missile, a glare that could burn through steel. He won 7 Cy Youngs, struck out nearly 5,000 batters, and kept throwing heat into his 40s. But as time goes on, people forget. They forget how scary he was, how unstoppable, how controversial, how he changed the game. Now it's time to remember the man who pitched like every hitter was an enemy. This is the legend of Roger Clemens. Before he was the Rocket, he was just Roger, a freckled kid from Dayton, Ohio, with a fire in his eyes and a glove too big for his hand. He wasn't born into greatness. What he had, even in those earliest years, was something you couldn't measure. An untamed fire in his eyes and a quiet hunger to be the best. Baseball, back then, wasn't a career path. It was an escape, a way to feel powerful in a world that so often wasn't. When his family later moved to Houston, Texas, everything changed. New town, new school, new expectations. He played football and basketball too, but there was something about the mound, the control, the isolation, the duel between pitcher and batter. That was where Roger belonged. And it didn't take long before the scouts started to circle. At Springwoods High School, Clemens started turning backyard dreams into high school dominance. The boy from Dayton became the talk of Houston. He wasn't just good, he was different. He had a live arm, but more than that, he had presence. He pitched with the kind of intensity that made hitters uncomfortable. Even then, people said he looked like a man on a mission. Coaches whispered his name to one another. Reporters started showing up with notebooks. Something special was happening. Everyone could feel it. Well enough, the New York Mets noticed. Sure, they even drafted him in 1980. But Roger didn't sign. Not because he was ungrateful. Not because he didn't want to play. But because deep down, he knew he wasn't ready. Not yet. The major leagues would still be there. His future would still be waiting, but he wanted to arrive better, sharper. He played college ball at the University of Texas instead because he wanted more, needed more, and that choice helped him to continue to change the game. At Texas, under head coach Cliff Gustafson, he wasn't handed anything. He had to earn every start, every inning, every mound visit, and he did. In Austin, he was a college baseball warlord. By his junior year, he was a terrifying presence in burnt orange, leading the Longhorns to a college World Series title in 1983. For his efforts, he took home the Golden Spikes Award, college baseball's Heisman. It was the stamp of greatness, the proof that his bet on himself had paid off. By the time the 1983 draft rolled around, the Boston Red Sox took him 19th overall. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. At first, he was just another kid with a big arm and a lot to prove, but it didn't take long for Boston to realize this guy wasn't like the others. Clemens came in with a chip on his shoulder the size of Fenway's Green Monster. By 1986, Clemens started owning big leagues. That year, he went 24-4, posted a 2.48 ERA, and struck out 238 poor souls. 24 wins in a single season in the heart of the steroid-free 1980s? That's something no ordinary man can accomplish. And Clemens didn't just get hitters out. He humiliated them. He turned all-stars into bystanders, made MVPs look like rookies. He didn't just win the Cy Young. He won the AL MVP. That almost never happens for a pitcher. But Roger Clemens wasn't a normal pitcher. He was the guy who looked at MVP voting and said, "Why not me?" Over the next decade in Boston, Clemens pitched like he was at war with the batter, the umpire, and sometimes himself. 3 Cy Young Awards, 8 All-Star appearances. He made Fenway Park his battlefield. He made the strike zone his territory. And every time he took the ball, fans knew they were watching something brutal, beautiful, and utterly rare. This was power. This was the Rocket taking off. And then the storm hit. By 1996, the Red Sox thought he was finished. Too many innings, too much wear. So they let him walk. They thought he was finished, but they didn't know Roger Clemens. Because that right there is when the second act began. He signed with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1997. He was 34. Most pitchers that age are talking about retirement or long relief. Not Clemens, not the Rocket. In 1997, Clemens unleashed a season for the ages. 21 wins, a 2.05 ERA, and a jaw-dropping 292 strikeouts. And when the season ended, he didn't just take home another Cy Young, he took it with authority. One of the most commanding comeback seasons in modern baseball history. Then, in 1998, he did it again. Back-to-back Cy Youngs. Clemens was still finding new gears, but even that wasn't a peak. Then came New York, the Bronx, the Yankees. The most iconic franchise in the game just landed the most feared arm in baseball. From 1999 to 2003, Clemens added 2 World Series rings to his trophy case. And no, he didn't tone it down. He didn't coast to wins. He was playing a key role in one of the most dominant dynasties the game had ever seen. He was still throwing heat, still striking out legends, still pitching like he had something to prove even after 300 wins and thousands of Ks. And when he finally announced his retirement in 2003, it seemed like a good ending. But Roger Clemens wasn't built for endings. Even after announcing his retirement, Clemens couldn't stay away. He returned to Texas, the state he considered his home, to join the Houston Astros in 2004. And that's when the truly unreal happened. At 42 years old, he won his 7th Cy Young Award. Most guys are coaching their kids by then, while Clemens, he was dominating major leaguers. He led Houston to their first World Series appearance in 2005. But, of course, no epic comes without controversy. As the 2000s wore on, Clemens' name became linked to allegations of steroid use. At first, it was just whispers. Then it was headlines. Then it was full-blown national attention. The turning point came in December 2007 when the Mitchell Report was released, Major League Baseball's investigation into performance-enhancing drugs. The report named nearly 90 players suspected of using banned substances, and Roger Clemens was among them. His inclusion shocked the baseball world. The primary source of the allegations was Brian McNamee, Clemens' former personal trainer. McNamee claimed that he had injected Clemens with anabolic steroids and human growth hormone during his time with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1998 and later with the New York Yankees. According to McNamee, these injections were not a one-time event. They were part of a repeated regimen. For many, the accusations cut deep. Clemens had been a symbol of longevity, pitching well into his 40s at a level few had ever reached. He had built a career on intensity, discipline, and a fierce competitive edge. Now, some began to wonder if that edge had been chemically enhanced. The fallout was immediate. Clemens strongly denied the claims. Just weeks after the Mitchell Report went public, Clemens recorded a televised interview with Mike Wallace for 60 Minutes, firmly stating that he had never used steroids or HGH. He claimed that the only injections McNamee had ever given him were B12 and lidocaine, common in professional sports for recovery and inflammation. But the story didn't end there. In early 2008, Clemens voluntarily testified before the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, under oath, to once again deny McNamee's claims. It was a rare and intense moment, one of the most high-profile hearings in the history of sports. Clemens' longtime friend and teammate, Andy Pettitte, was also called to testify. Pettitte told the committee that Clemens had once admitted to using HGH in a private conversation. Clemens disputed that version of events, suggesting Pettitte had misremembered what was said. The contradiction created tension. Both men had built reputations on trust, but now found themselves offering conflicting accounts under legal scrutiny. As the investigation deepened, Clemens was referred to the Department of Justice for possible perjury. In 2010, he was indicted on 6 counts: perjury, making false statements, and obstruction of Congress. It was an extraordinary fall from grace for a player who had once stood atop the sport. His first trial, in 2011, ended in a mistrial due to prosecutorial misconduct. A second trial followed in 2012, where Clemens' legal team argued that McNamee lacked credibility, pointing to inconsistencies in his testimony and a lack of direct evidence. Clemens did not testify, but the jury deliberated carefully. After a lengthy and highly publicized proceeding, Clemens was acquitted on all counts. He walked out of the court legally vindicated. But in the court of public opinion and in the halls of Cooperstown, the case still lingers. Clemens became eligible for the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2013. Over 10 years later, his name appeared on the ballot, and each time has sparked debate. His statistics made a compelling case. 354 wins, over 4,600 strikeouts, 7 Cy Young awards. But voters remained divided. Some believed his connection to the steroid era disqualified him, even without a conviction. Others argued that no era of baseball can be understood without acknowledging its full context. In his final year of eligibility in 2022, Clemens received 65.2% of the vote, short of the 75% needed for induction. Through it all, Clemens has remained consistent in his denial. He's continued to appear at public events, attend charity functions, and occasionally speak about the case. He insisted that he never cheated and that his career was built on hard work, not shortcuts. The shadows never erased the legend, but they made it more complicated. Because that's the truth of Roger Clemens. He was complicated. He wanted to win, to dominate, to leave a mark so deep on the game that no amount of scandal could ever scrape it off. And whether or not he gets into Cooperstown, you can't tell the story of baseball without him. He was the rocket, built to burn, and burn bright until the very end. Thanks for watching. Do you think Clemens deserves a place in the Hall of Fame? Comment below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, like and subscribe for more of baseball's craziest stories.